Hello and welcome to CX Today. My name is Charlie. I am the senior editor here, and I'm thrilled today to bring you a discussion about the current state of AI in business communications. And joining me for that conversation are two very special guests. Yesterday, I'm delighted to be joined by John Finch, the Global Vice President of Product Marketing for Customer Experience at RingCentral, and also Esther Yoon, Vice President of Product and Industry Marketing, also at RingCentral. Thanks both very much for joining me, and let's get right on into the discussion. So, as I kind of alluded to, the focus of our conversation today is AI and a comprehensive study into AI by, you guessed it, RingCentral. And the report details findings from a survey of 625 US based respondents across four industries, offering an up-to-date overview of AI's current role within enterprise communications. And RingCentral was pledged to update it biannually. So in other words, this is a massive project. So I guess first up, the best question for me to ask, maybe to you, John, is kind of why RingCentral was committed so much time to this ongoing piece of research.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good question. Thanks, Charlie. Really, this is an ever-changing industry, right? Communications in general has been over the years, and with the invention and the innovation with AI, it's continuing to accelerate. And one of the things that we're trying to do is keep on top of that acceleration and bring that innovation to our customers and our products and help to educate and listen to our customers and listen to the marketplace as well. And this is one of those ways to do this. This is first party research that we conducted. We are going to continue, as you mentioned, to do this research quarter over quarter, or maybe even more frequently, it's just depending upon what's going on, to be able to help us stay abreast of what's going on in the industry, those changes, and how we can continue to innovate, as well as be sort of that beacon for our customers and the broader industry as well.
Yeah, excellent. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a really big piece of research, and I really like how it's laid out as well. It's split into four kind of key sections. I think the first is adoption and integration. The second is ROI and investment trends, and then there's fraud and security too. And there is, as I kind of sort of alluded to, a whole host of kind of key findings and takeaways. But maybe Esther, my first question to you is kind of what were your top takeaways and what surprised you most?
So top takeaway that I think is probably the most surprising to me is like, let's call it the CC like reality gap. There is this kind of stair step pattern from tops down. As you get closer to the top, you see a really high level of optimism with AI, and then you start to kind of see it cascade down as you get to ground level operations. And so that I think is the most interesting because, you have about 67% of the C-suite and the executive level saying like they're super gung-ho about AI. And then once you get down to the day-to-day implementation, it's about 47% that's showing optimism. And I found that really interesting of just like the gap of, are we equipping the team? Are we giving them the right resources? Myself being on RingCentral's AI Council, I kind of am starting to understand this, right? Because there's this huge, huge support for AI. Like they're kind of like AI first, security later, almost, where it's like, hey, we need to experiment now because this is so important. But then the reality is it's really difficult to onboard. And, all of these new vendors do have to go through a certain process like onboarding and through procurement, legal, privacy. And so I think that that's probably the most surprising finding that I found just from the data. The other thing is just fintech, who's typically seen as the leaders in innovation across very regulated industries. They're actually showing that they're probably below average based on the report. And I think it's because they have the highest concern for security in this space. And so what I see is there's this kind of backlog of huge AI optimism from 2024, highly regulated industries. Some of them like FinServe, they were like a little slow to adopt. I think in 2025, we're going to see a really different area of focus in these highly regulated industries where like 2024 was all about like speed, experimentation. 2025 is like, okay, now let's track the ROI. Let's make sure, we're doing this right, probably less point solutions and all that. So that's kind of a long-winded saying, like, there are a lot of interesting findings that I caught throughout this report.
Yeah, and I think I really kind of relates to, I guess, the FinServe example there, because I guess that's not the conversations that you have in FinServe. I mean, typically fall into that. Well, there's two needs that you need to kind of fulfill, especially kind of in a customer communications point of view. There's the need for quick, effortless service, but then there's also a need for more consultation as well. And
Yeah.
balancing those two things is quite something to achieve. So yeah, I thought that was a really great point. And another big takeaway from me within the report is that companies adopting AI in communications are adopting AI in communications more and more, because it's one more fit for purpose than it was previously, and two, it's much easier to test and prove the ROI.
Yeah.
John, I don't know if you could actually talk a little bit to that as well, on how it's now much easier to build kind of test use cases for AI investment.
Yeah. I mean, and that's a lot of what we're excited to talk to folks about in the webinar coming up too, on the research on December 12th. And I think what's exciting about it really is that for the last couple of years, we've seen this, right? We've seen organizations go out, have this fit to purpose deployment. They've put it into contact center solutions so they can better customer service. And the customer service components that go into this have really augmented and enhanced the way that organizations are providing services in many different ways. But besides that, they can implement things like quality management, and they can introduce coaching, even if it's the smallest contact center, because it's sort of democratized. I know that word is a little bit overused, but it's democratized the way that people can do that. So it's no longer only the very largest organizations with the most budget can deploy these kinds of things. They can actually enhance their overall performance, interaction by interaction, agent by agent, and affect their CSAT scores and ultimately their NPS scores. So we see that as a tangible ROI across the organization. And now when they look to go into the organization a little bit further and say, hey, C-suite, my fellow C-suite members, what else can we do across AI? And as Esther has mentioned, a lot of organizations now have these AI councils. And even us in marketing here at RingCentral, we're looking at different ways we can augment that. And Esther leads that charge for us. Like, what can we do better, faster, cheaper, with less people, get more done, but do it really well, and have that in our control without sacrificing other things like security and other elements that are really important in this overall decision. So they've sort of tested that, bring that back to the team and say, hey, look, let's go into these other areas now too. We see the benefit. Now let's look at other things we can do. So this fit to purpose is really for contact center. It has allowed organizations to test it, have that ROI, feel comfortable about it, continue the investment, not only in communications generally, because you get into like not only the customer conversations, but personal interactions and sales interactions and product development. This data now becomes part of the organization that makes the company smarter, because it's listening and transcribing every conversation. It's looking at sentiment across the organization. It's gathering data and knowledge. It's housing that. It becomes, a data set that can be correlated to make bigger and better decisions as well as you go forward. So it's a win-win overall.
Yeah, and I do want to actually pick up on that data point, because, as you said, it's key, John. And that, like, alongside all of these new AI capabilities that we're talking about, the report shows that companies now have more access to data than ever. That includes data on how to build better products, how to meet customer needs, how to beat the competition, how to introduce new services and offerings. There's a lot there for companies to kind of wrap their minds around. So I don't know, maybe Esther, this is a question for you. How from the research, do you think customers and companies should start putting that treasure trove of data to work and have it power new AI use cases?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, as the security concern starts to raise, what I would say based on the data, but also from what John and I see with our customer base is, like, the trove of point solutions definitely will increase that risk. And so one of the things we see and we hear from our customers all the time is they love how it's a single platform that's AI is natively built into it to solve core issues. It's not you're not buying AI as a separate standalone thing to solve this specific problem. It's more of you are solving a communications or a use case specifically, there's tools that are already implemented across your organizations, and you can layer AI to make those use cases that you're already trying to provide just better. For example, one of the things that I would recommend as people look to, leveraging probably the terabytes of recording and call data that they have already had access to, but maybe they didn't have the manpower or resources to spend time like listening to every one of those calls. I mean, we see it all the time in CX. Supervisors were spending less than 10% of their time, or they were getting insights into less than 10% of recorded conversations to provide coaching. So what you can do is now use tools that can proactively feed intelligence to you in places that matter. I say it's like finding a needle in the haystack, but you're holding a giant magnet, and then the needle comes to you, right? And so that's that. You could get distillations of 100% of your calls. The other thing that we're doing in marketing is personalization. So imagine you used to get campaigns that said, hey, like efficiency, productivity, we can help, learn more, right? But now imagine if every single customer or contact that you have could get a very hyper personalized interaction that says something like, hey, it sounds like in your last support call, you were asking about compliance products. Let's chat, right? And we can, and that, imagine that experience. It feels tailor made for you because it is, right? And so beyond CX, which I call the CX team, they're the canaries in the coal mine. They're at the forefront. They know the customer. They know the voice of their customer. It's about taking what they've already known, what they've been putting in as best practice and applying it to the rest of the org, I think is the biggest opportunity.
Yeah, lots of really great stuff there. And it actually makes me think about how well formed the RingCentral suite is altogether, and how that you have this CCAS solution, UCAS solution, but also the conversational intelligence solution to enable some of that workflow too. But obviously, that's not what we're here to talk about. And there's lots more. We've covered a lot of ground already, and there's lots more that we could possibly discuss. But beyond kind of what we've discussed today, John, I don't know if you can kind of tease what else there is for our viewers to uncover within the report.
Well, and the report's going to be it displays a lot of great information. I mean, it looks at usage in the workplace. It breaks it down by different size of organizations. So we've talked to a lot of decision makers inside these companies and really asked them some detailed questions, right? So, just under half of them used AI multiple times per week. So there's a lot more usage in just like the things that I've mentioned and Esther had mentioned about organizations using it for themselves in the personal areas, right? So you look at communications, note-taking, receptionist, those kinds of things that start to enhance your overall work performance with communications from RingCentral as an example. Then you add that to other tools that you may use to write content or create video assets. Those things put you ahead of the competition. And we're seeing more and more people start to use AI just in their everyday usage. The other thing that comes out is a little bit about trust and security, as Esther mentioned, right? And that was the thing that she had mentioned as a very interesting point. And I think we address it pretty well. You're going to look for an organization that has this button down. You're going to look for an organization that has the ability to address trust, address the security, has a longevity of industry performance. There are new organizations, obviously, in AI that are coming out, and I'm not saying that those shouldn't be looked at, but there should be a conscious effort when making decisions, and we'll sort of address that with our chief security and trust officer, who will be on the webinar with us as well. So there's a lot of great information just all around, and we address a lot of the concerns that come out in the report. And I think some of the other statistics that come out are just really kind of thought-provoking as well.
I'd like to add something.
Oh, sorry, Esther, continue.
Yeah. John mentioned the webinar, which is part of our AI Real Talk series. And I highly recommend, any listener that's out there, especially if you're in like a regulated industry, FinServe, healthcare, or CX heavy industry, right? Like retail, for example, transportation, logistics. We have created a very pragmatic on-demand webinar series. It's a live and on-demand webinar series that talks very, very practically about AI applications, trends we're seeing based on this report. So really, really recommend anyone who's listening in to go check out the AI Real Talk series from RingCentral. It's just we started it, I think, early in Q2 of this year, and we're
Yep.
going to carry it through. And it's we've gotten really great feedback.
And it's a lot of fun too. We have some good music and DJ, and like it's a blast. So even if you're just if you've got something going on in the background, that's okay. You're going to tune into this. This isn't just like Esther and I talking. It's a number of individuals that are very credible in this space, and it's really about the research, but it also has that fun component, which is pretty cool too.
You have a DJ.
We have a DJ. See, Charlie?
Excellent. Well, I might be one of the viewers for the next webinar. And what I'll do for all our viewers too is I'll put a link into the webinar and also to the trends report so you can access both of those really great pieces of content. But I think that's a great place to end today's chat. We've talked about so much already. I do want to thank John and Esther for joining me today, and also for everybody for watching this. Bye for now.